Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. I've got a video for you today on a sheath that I just made for this Mora Garberg. If you guys haven't checked out the Garberg, this is Mora's first and only, I think, full tang knife. Came out a few years ago. Very popular in the bushcraft world. You know, all the same competence that you get from Mora. This knife, of course, this is on their pricier side, but you do get a lot out of this knife, and of course it is full tang. So I'm a huge fan of Mora in general, but actually my favorite Mora by a long shot is probably the Companion. I just really love that knife. So anyway, um, this one is going to Aaron up in Ajax, Ontario. Aaron asked me if I could build him. He had a pretty, for a small package, it's actually a pretty complex sheath to build. And I went about it a little bit differently from how I normally would. So let me gather my bearings here, make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, all right, I think I got it all. So he sent me his Falkneven, I think it's called the CC4 sharpening stone, this guy here, double-sided, and he asked if I could attach this to the sheath. So we had talked about it a bit and decided that the best way to go about it would be for me to actually create a pouch of Kydex that this leather pouch can fit into, for two reasons. Number one is that I wasn't sure what the Kydex would do to the stone, if the stone would get inundated with Kydex flakes and then scratch up a knife or something like that, or if the stone itself would wear the Kydex away and then basically create too wide of a space for itself to fit into, so it'd be, you know, falling out of the sheath when you don't want it to. So the best of both worlds, I think, is to be able to just draw this pouch out because it gives a little bit of resistance, so you can compress this, and then that counter pressure of it trying to expand again is going to hold it in place really nicely. So that's what we have here on the front of this. It's a really easy pouch system to use. You can put the pouch in either direction. You can put it in with the curve first or the squared side first. But you basically just seat it all the way down in there. You can see that this contours downward and kind of closes off. It's not impossible to pull the stone out the bottom, but it's obviously meant to go upward. So you just push it out far enough to grab. I like to put the rounded edges out just because they are excess. So it lets you bend away and just grip it and pull that out. Really, really easy to use, smooth draw, and I think I have it at the right retention where it's not going to damage the leather over time to be sliding in and out. So you should get a lot of use out of that. And one of the points that he actually made when we were discussing what would be the most viable option, he had suggested this would be partly because if he ever needed to replace the pouch, that's something he could do really cheap as well. So if the Kydex does wear the leather, replacing the leather pouch would be very easy versus trying to, you know, ship internationally and take care of the Kydex portion. So yeah, we went with this. All right, the other things that he wants on this, he wanted it compatible with a tech lock so that he'd be able to carry it in various, this is a left-handed sheath, he wanted to be able to carry it in various left-handed configurations, such as vertical, cross draw, and scout for left hand. And so scout carry is always kind of the black, it's the black duckling of the bunch, because when you have scout carry on a tech lock and you have it set up for other carries as well, the thing with the scout carry is it uses the opposite side of the sheath. So imagine really quick, imagine this plate here, I'll explain the plate in a minute, but imagine this plate was your tech lock. You obviously would facilitate your vertical carry on this side of the sheath with the tech lock, or your cross draw over here, same side of the sheath. But when you switch to scout, which is horizontal in the small of your back to draw out with your left hand, all of a sudden the face of the sheath now becomes the body side of the sheath. So a tech lock is great because it functions on either side of the sheath. However, because we have other attachments here, it was important that we made this something easy to remove. So you can see it's set up with, I put 5 eyelets in it, but the only 2 that are actually holding this thing in place are the 2 eyelets at the end. Excuse me, everyone. Sorry, haven't had enough coffee this morning. All right, so it should be pretty easy to remove, and it looks like, yeah, looking at it, this middle Chicago screw there, and obviously the one at the tip. Those are the two that are holding that pouch in place. Full disclosure, with something like this, there are a lot of things involved. So because you can see all the layers that are incorporated, just know that sometimes it is a pain in the butt to take it apart and remove one component and put that back together. With a smaller sheath like this, it's just not possible to set it up so that nothing affects anything else as far as, you know, just being able to quickly detach things. So nothing on here is dependent on another feature being present, but they're all, you know, mangled in there in some way, shape, or form. So you might have to, you might have to fight with that a little bit. All right, obviously we've got a ferro rod loop here. This is fitted for the Exotac fire rod, and one of the things he specifically asked me to do was, you can see that little notch right there. What that is a shock cord retention notch. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I don't know if he has shock cord or not, so I'm gonna, before I forget, I'm just gonna cut a length of it off and put it in a package so that he can tie it on if he needs to. Come on. Apparently I gotta sharpen my Garberg. Alright. So essentially, how this works, you have your Exotac fire rod. How I like to tie these, just so you guys know, I'm going to tie it really loose because I'll take it right off. This is my fire rod that I use for forming sheaths, holders rather. So I do a double overhand knot. How you do that, you take your two strands like so, and you just create a loop. I like to try to keep the strands organized so it's aesthetically pleasing too. But alright, so I just pass it through. Now when you're doing this for a ferro rod, you want that loop to come, when it's stretched, you want it to come to the end. You want, when it's slack, you want it to be somewhere in the middle of the rod, because obviously it has to be for retention. So you want it to aggressively hold the rod in its holder. All right, and then I do the same exact thing, just closer to the actual tip of the cords. The reason why I do two, maybe it's not a double overhand, it's just two overhand knots. The reason I do it like that is because it just gives your fingers something really positive to grip onto, rather than always trying to grip below that first knot, and then your fingers are actually, you know, a retention device in itself. So yeah, that second knot really helps, I think, to grip it. So, all right, how this works, that retention notch there, normally I just do it right up and over, and it is enough when it's here. When the cord, I don't know how well you can see that. There we go. When the cord is just at, you know, the tip flush with this rounded edge, that's usually what my holders have. This one has a little notch for it to sink back into, which makes the cord a little bit more slack, but it also makes it much more secure. So in the event, for instance, that you whittle the tip of the rod down so that it's flush with the holder, it's probably not going to happen because you strike the length of the rod, but it can happen. It does happen. So if you ever whittled it down so that the rod itself was flush with the tip of that, your shock cord would actually still be very useful. And obviously, even though it's a little bit slack just based on where I tied it, you can tie it further up and stretch it further to go over your holder. So yeah, any which way, that's how you use one of those, or what the purpose of that cord notch is. I'm sure that was self-explanatory anyway, but sorry, I think I tied this a little too tight. Maybe I tightened it when I stretched it out to fit it over the holder. All right, there we go. So, Aaron, this will be in the package with your sheath. I'm actually just gonna stuff it into the Exotac loop right now, just so we know it's there. All right, sorry for that little detour to La La Land. Obviously, it also has an Alti clip on it. Now, what we did with this, he wanted one of the smaller Alti clips. He said whichever one I think is best for pocket carry, but preferably a smaller one. I chose the very smallest one. This is the Alti clip Slim 2.2. The reason I went with this one is because of the available space on the sheath itself. You do have a little bit of a range of adjustment with this thing. You can loosen this very first screw, the one in the corner here near the mouth of the sheath. You can loosen that a little bit and you'd be able to slide up through the, there's a milled, about 3/4 inch milled slot, and that's the only slot for hardware in this particular Alti clip. But you could slide this in and out to adjust your ride height. He wants essentially for a pocket carry. And how that would work is you would just put the sheath in your pocket, probably not with the pouch on it. You'd probably want to remove the pouch and the plate and all that and do a bare bones option. But you'd slide that into your pocket, put that right over the fabric, tucked up under this hook there, and then you'd cinch that back down, and your Garberg would seat relatively deep into your pocket. You'd have about an inch and a half of the handle concealed in your pocket. So you'd still be able to grab this much of your knife and just pull out, or you can just put your hand further into your pocket and grab the whole handle. I think it works pretty well. So let's see fit. You get a nice little click in. Not much of a click because of the rubberized handle, but it's in there really firm, secure. There's no rattle, no play. The rattle you're hearing right now is these two screws. If I hold those in place, no rattle, no play. Ballistic one-handed draw. It's a really good fit on this guy. If you're wondering why it's so broad, it's a little bit wider than a sheath for this size knife would normally be. The reason is because of this sharpening stone. Alright, so the last thing on here that you can see right now is this plate. The reason the plate is on there is ultimately to function as an adapter for the Dangler. He decided that he wanted a Dangler that would be easy to take on and off the belt without undoing the belt. Now, snaps are always an option, although I recommend against them if you're doing a leather sheath because the snaps just aren't long enough and I have to thin out the leather, and that makes for weak leather, so I would go with nylon if you want snaps on it. However, there is another option, something that I've done. I haven't done it in a little while, but I've done a few of them, and it's what I call the Tech-Lock Dangler. So essentially, I do the same kind of D-ring adapter. It's just kind of folded for packaging. I had to take this apart to fit it into the box, but yeah, you just fold this down. That fits. The adapter will fit to screw onto here, and then this nylon just runs right up to a Tech-Lock. So instead of being a closed loop at the top, you'll actually be able to just use a Tech-Lock as you normally would to take the sheath on and off, which is really cool. I just put a little plate over the front of it, just carve it out a little bit, make it look maybe a little bit flashy, and it pins the nylon in place. So that's how this works. It's really, really rugged. It's really easy to use, same as a normal Tech-Lock operation, and it just gives you a quick option. So I think these are pretty cool. The other thing is that obviously if you're getting one of these, you're getting a Tech-Lock. And the sheath itself, as well as the plate, is compatible with the Tech-Lock at multiple angles. So you could wear this scout, vertical, cross draw, horizontal, anywhere on your belt. You name it. So you got a lot of options with this one package. The Alti clip, the Tech-Lock, the Dangler, just about every carry position on the belt is covered. So I think that's really cool. Just had something to say. Oh yeah, the reason why I did a plate instead of the normal, whatever you want to call it, the little jut out of the tab coming up off of the sheath itself, is because with all the other carry options that he wanted, like scout carry, where you're reversing which side of the sheath is the face. I didn't want the backside with a tab to be sticking up when he's trying to grab, you know, the tab might get in the way when he's carrying Scout, because now it's in the front of the knife or whatever. So, well, I guess that wouldn't affect it. But it would be kind of weird to look at from the back. So when you strip everything down and take this sheath apart, and you're just left with the knife in the sheath, this is 100% ambidextrous. So you can screw with this, you can move it around. Even this plate is ambidextrous. This Falkneven pouch, ambidextrous. The ferro rod loop doesn't matter, but I would leave it mounted exactly where it's mounted, no matter which side of the sheath you're using for what. But yeah, that's the whole spiel with this knife, or with this sheath rather. Everything is ambidextrous. So I think that just makes it a little bit easier as far as when you switch to Scout carry, having that front become the back and all that. So hopefully that makes sense. But all right, well, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I think I covered it all. So, all right, guys, let me know what you think of this. If you like the Tek-Lock Dangler idea, comment down below. Tell me what you think of this whole setup. I think it's a really versatile idea that he had in mind. Covers just so many bases in one go, and still hopefully in a somewhat compact package. I think this is about the smallest I can make it. You see, I made some compromises where the pouch actually comes above the plane of the sheath itself, which I usually don't like to do, but I think, you know, to keep it a little bit slimmer, ultimately that was a better decision. So, all right, there it is. So, let me know what you guys think. Sorry, I'm just tired. All right, like, share, comment, subscribe, and stick around for the next one. God bless.